Good morning. I'm just making sure I have the right one. It's the 6th. Okay. Welcome to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church. We're delighted to have you here, whether you're in person or attending virtually. It's good to be together, a community of youth, adults, and children, sharing in the values of courage, reverence, and compassion. I'm Steph Ward. I am she, her, and I'm a member of the board of directors. If you have a joy or sorrow that you'd like to share, please add it to the meditation bowl or in the chat box if you're online prior to the opening hymn. And please make sure to gain the full consent of the person's name that you're using, if you're using their full name. For those online, our cyber social hour starts 5 minutes after the postlude. And then in the building, the social hall is once again becoming a hub of connection for informal conversation and cookies. You can find tables and information about some upcoming events happening here at the church. We hope that you'll check them out. If you're looking for a short, more structured time of connection and community, we are still doing the formalized small group conversations. You can grab your coffee and cookies and then find your way to the Emerson alcove down the hall. And then once a small group has gathered, there will be about 20 minutes of some focused sharing. The next membership 2 class is happening today, I think in the same spot, no, in the Wheatley room, sorry, 12:30 to 2 p.m. Sounds like there's going to be snacks ahead of time, and you can also participate on Zoom. And now a brief testimonial from our endowment program by Dick Otten.
Good morning. My name is Dick Ottman. My wife Judy and I joined this church 45 years ago in 1977. And about 30 plus years ago, we inherited some money, and instead of spending it, we decided to put it in a Vanguard investment fund. And it started to grow, get bigger. And a few years after that, we decided, oh, we give a lot of money away. Let's set up a Vanguard charitable fund, which happened, it's a donor advised fund. And every year what I do before the taxes come due is I figure out how much money we want to move from Vanguard investments to Vanguard charitable. And we take the tax deduction when we move the money from the investment to the charitable. Now, once it's in the charitable fund, the donor advised fund, you can't give it to your Uncle Sam. You have to give it to a charity, by the way, because you've already taken the tax deduction. So that being the case, that charitable fund has a beneficiary to it. And what we've done is name the church as one of the beneficiaries of our fund. And what we want to do of the donor advised fund is when we die, this will be our final act, to give money to the endowment fund of this church to keep this church financially healthy. This is our thank you for three basic things. First of all, members of this church were instrumental in helping us raise our children. We had no family in the area to help us, and we appreciated those people. Secondly, we've had many friendships and personal relations that we never would have had if this church wasn't here. And thirdly, it has helped us with spiritual growth. So I urge all of you to consider putting the church as a beneficiary of any IRA fund, investment fund, or donor advised fund that you own. It's very easy to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Welcome to our church. Together we grow our souls and serve the world in love. Thank you.
Come into this space which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, hopes and joys. For here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together, we make it a holy place. I'm Reverend Roger, and my pronouns are he, him.
I'm Teal Bassett. My pronouns are she, her. Did you know that singer-songwriter Taylor Swift had one of the most historic weeks in the 64-year history of the Billboard Hot 100 Songs chart? She is the first artist to claim the survey's entire top 10 in a single frame. Her new Midnights album has taken the world by storm. I'm delighted to report that I have contributed to her album's success by streaming it nonstop since its release. It's me, hi, I'm a Swiftie. However, I must admit Midnights hasn't been a complete delight for the other humans that share space with me. There has been some grumblings of not this again. There can sometimes be tension from the humans who live with me when my music preferences dominate our speakers. We rarely agree on the same music to listen to together, but when Taylor Swift releases a new album, I need to learn those songs, and I learn through repetition, lots and lots of repetition. So here's my foolproof advice about nudging those you share space with to tolerate your fangirl obsessions. When her songs are playing, try to sneak in some interesting trivia about the lyrics to the person next to you. This will inevitably cause them to listen to the lyrics, which in turn will impress them. When another song comes on, retell the various theories you've heard about who she wrote the song about. For example, a lot of people think the song Maroon is about her current relationship, but still pays homage to her beloved song's Red interpretation of Young Love. And by the way, did you know that Taylor Swift is an ally for LGBTQ folks? Yes, she's cool like that too. You might think I'm being a little too enthusiastic about this topic, but think about it. Have I convinced you yet to go home and take a listen to her latest album? Today, I wanted to share something with you that brings me joy. Let's share what brings us joy and to be curious about what gives other people joy. Taylor Swift is unapologetically herself, and her storytelling through song is incredible. And not everyone is going to be a fan, but she still wins all the awards. Let us light this chalice to celebrate our joys, our many interests, and for changing minds.
I'm Reverend Jack, and my pronouns are he, him. Please join me for the opening words. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We've had a change in the order of service, just to keep you on your toes. Our opening hymn will actually be number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. It's in the teal softcover hymnal. Please rise and embody your spirit.
Good morning. My name is Amy and my pronouns are she, her. I'm so honored to be one of the people on staff that gets to consistently share stories with you all. This practice has helped to remind me that storytelling is not just about the words themselves, but about the power of the shared experience of story. Sometimes we add to this storytelling experience by engaging in sacred reading practices that invite us to experience the text in an even deeper way than we might if we were to just read the story together. Some of you might be familiar with the sacred reading practice called Florilegium, finding a sparklet of wisdom in a text, a story, or an experience, and then sharing the sparklet back in a group together. Listening for sparklets invites us to be present to a text or an experience in a much different way. We assume a different posture when we prepare ourselves to be the recipients of the gifts of sacred wisdom. These practices help the story become a part of us in a new and different way, not just in our minds, but also in our bodies, in our hearts. Another sacred reading practice that we have often used with children and youth, one that has been introduced here before in the past by Nico and Jack, is called decenter and receive. This, again, is a practice that invites us to assume a different posture, to listen in a new way, and to do the spiritual work of centering what ought to be centered in that individual moment. It allows us to receive a new story as sacred, centering the storyteller's experiences rather than our own. And so the practice goes like this, and I'm going to invite you to practice it with me. It might be new for you, or you may have done it before with us. So imagine that you are holding every single thing that you know in your hands. All of your stories and experiences. Feel the weight of it. Sit with it for a moment. Feel the weight of those stories in your hands and take a deep breath. And then move everything you know into just one hand and hold it tight, hold it safely there. And we're going to tuck it away to a safe place so that we can mingle it with new learnings later. Now hold your other hand open, holding space for a new story. It is in the open space where wonder and awe and curiosity can live. Hold that hand open. Take a breath. Pay attention to the posture of your body, of your heart, of your mind, and your spirit as you hold space to receive the gift of story. Do you feel different than you did a moment ago? One of my favorite times that we have practiced this decenter and receive with children and youth has not only been before sharing stories together, but before our check-in ritual that we do at the beginning of every single class together. During this check-in ritual, we invite our children and youth to take a breath and then to take turns sharing their names, their pronouns, and if they feel like it, one thing they are bringing with them into the circle that day. For example, I would say, my name is Amy, my pronouns are she, her, and today I'm bringing with me joy for being with you today. Even if we have all introduced ourselves a million times before, we always start with this practice, this ritual of holding space for naming. Not only because there might be somebody new in our circle that day, but because we are always growing and shifting in our understanding of who we are, that the story that we have to tell of ourselves might change every day. And sometimes it just takes a while to be willing to share pieces of our story with others, and that's okay. There's so much power in practicing making space for this naming and receiving. And when we practice decenter and receive before we check in with each other, we are reminded to hold names and pronouns and pieces of one another's stories as sacred text, because it is sacred text. This practice calls us to be intentional. I intend to hold space for you. I intend to receive your sharing of your name and your pronouns and your feelings as sacred. I intend to treat this sharing as a gift, and I allow myself to deepen my understanding of myself and others. So let's take a breath. Let's hold some space for ourselves and one another for a moment. Hold out your hand, holding intentional space for one another. remembering that the sharing of names and pronouns, sharing of who we are with one another is a sacred gift. And if you feel comfortable, I invite you now to speak into the space or hold silently your name, your pronouns, and one thing you are bringing with you into this space this morning. Take a breath. You are a gift. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit. We're going to sing our children and youth who are registered for our circles this morning with number 1057 in the teal hymnal, Go Lifted Up.
Please join me for a moment of prayer or meditation. Take a moment to move your body a bit, wiggle out any energy you need to, maybe lift your shoulders, stretch your body, and then find a comfortable seat. Feel your connection to what is supporting you. Take a deep inhale and the deep exhale. Spirit of life, spirit of love, spirit of mystery and wonder. We're gathered together on this cool day, having recently celebrated Remembrance Sunday. The nights are getting darker. We are preparing for a new season. We are moving into the season of gratitude and harvest. Like nature all around us, we feel the cycles turning, and the cycles of life turn for us as well. Joy and loss, energy and rest, ease and dis-ease. This week, many of our folks are preparing for various surgeries, and we lift up their names into this moment so that we can hold them in light and in love. Jim Hone, Stephanie Cheetah, Carla Butts. May their surgeries go smoothly, and may their recoveries begin well. We also hold in light and in love Ginny Johansson and her wife Ingrid. Ginny had an emergency surgery this Friday, and they are awaiting results from her biopsy. Prayers of support and thoughts of solidarity are welcome. We also hold the friends and family of Nancy Cosgriff. Nancy passed away this past Wednesday with her two sisters by her side. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. Requests also for the Heathcote family, for Kate and Sim Shepard in Washington, whose grown son just died suddenly without known cause. A request to hold my sister in my heart as she grieves multiple recent losses. And prayers of joy for a successful surgery, a rotator cuff surgery for Ron Germanson. In this moment of stillness, when our thoughts might be racing, we take a deep breath in and out. Into this mutual support, we name out loud the names of those we are holding in our hearts and in our minds. knowing that together this community can hold us all, this web of interconnection. May it be so, and make it so. Amen.
All right. All funds donated in today's special collection will go to the center at Maplewood Mall, opened in 2018, and the center focuses on support for homeless and at-risk youth. The video shows areas that we'll see in a moment, shows areas of supplies, food, a lounge, laundry, computers, and a meeting space, and the site also provides access to support services at the Harriet Tubman Center. The mall site is now open 3 days a week, and our congregation has provided extensive financial support, donated supplies, and volunteer staff for the center. Please visit the table in the social hall after the service for more information. We'll pass the donation baskets, and you can also donate in 3 other ways on the WBUUC webpage. Send a check or leave a check in the locked box outside the church office, or use the text to give option found in your order of service or in the chat. Thank you for your continued generosity and your passion to serve the world in love.
Everything is changing. Only now is changeless. Patience attains the goal. Who has now lacks nothing. Now alone fills all needs. Let nothing upset you. Let nothing frighten you. Everything is changing. Change. Everything is changing. Only now is changeless. Patience attains the goal. Who has now lacks nothing. Now alone fills all needs. Let nothing upset you. Let nothing frighten you. Everything is changing, changing, changing.
Our reading this morning is Changing Hearts by David Wyatt. Yesterday, we sat in the afternoon sun, conscious how time was dissolving into the chill of evening, sipping our cappuccino or ginger ale between words that my friend drew forth like the inexplicable raising of honey, nectar into honey. And I heard for the second time the news of his heart transplant. Details like a postcard from a foreign country, navigating the impermanent collection of sludge and ether I call my body, to the cabbage-like brain swelling to make room for this surging astonishment. He'd been lying on the slab, he said, stoned on Valium. The surgeons dotted around the perimeter, discussing which parts of the dying man next door they'd plant in him, removing the tattered bag of his heart, lying in like a newborn in another man's dream. The surgeon from Texas leaned in and said, "We're about to give you what you need." My friend woke in the astonished manner of expectation when met with the unexpected, rises to a broader view, alive and aware of the vigorous pump and surge of his new heart, a dying gift from a man who no longer had use for it, whipping about like a catfish in a river cove. My friend stopped his story then and tilted his head. "You know," he said, "they never tell you the identity of the person who gives you the heart, but I awoke knowing his name and his 3 children." He grasped his teacup in both hands, the delicate way one handles a gardenia blossom just pedaling open. The afternoon dimmed and turned to embrace the inevitability of night as we lingered, squeezing the paling moments for their last sweet water drippings, drawing into our bodies what warmth we could. Yet something far more than flesh and grit was riding the chest of my friend, sitting across from me, alive in this world, augmented somehow. There was a silence then, nothing would do but silence, in which his story settled in me like my own new heart, clinching and whispering, as we rose and stretched and walked away into the murmuring, breathing night.
the heart of my work is for 4 years as executive director of the Unitarian Universalist Partner Church Council was facilitating mutual sharing of beliefs and spiritual journeys with Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists across the globe. And it's good to know that there is a tremendous variety of beliefs across our global UU family. As I continue developing my own beliefs, I find that the differences, actually more than the similarities, are illuminating. For example, getting to know Indonesian Unitarians who are Pentecostal Christians, believing that Jesus was human, believing in universal salvation, stretched my beliefs. There are also notable differences about justice, too. Many Unitarian Universalists in the United States have been surprised to discover that many Hungarian, probably most Hungarian Unitarians in Transylvania, do not share our commitment to marriage equality. The divergence became painfully clear in 2017 when the Hungarian Unitarian Synod approved a statement that included an understanding of marriage as being between one man and one woman. So the Hungarian Unitarian Synod is composed of ministers and elected lay members from every church in Transylvania and in Hungary, and the statement passed by more than 85%. Now, the statement also affirmed a commitment to welcome all people into their congregations as they are. Well, for most American Unitarian Universalists and some Transylvanian Unitarians, we recognize that there's kind of a dissonance between the statement defining marriage narrowly and the stated commitment to inclusion. I was part of a group of international Unitarian and Unitarian Universalist leaders who wrote a public letter of concern in the aftermath of this action. This group included the UU Association president in the United States, Susan Frederick Gray, and leaders of the International Council of Unitarians and Universalists. So why did we voice our concern publicly? Well, we didn't do it because we had the authority to tell the Transylvanian Unitarians what to do. We didn't have that authority and we didn't want it. Rather, we were motivated by concern for LGBTQ people in the Hungarian Unitarian Church, and because some LGBTQ allies there asked us to speak up. Too often, I think, well, let me say one more thing. We were also motivated by a vision of mutual relationship in which we can share disagreements with one another. Too often, we have avoided talking with our overseas UU kinfolk about areas of disagreement. And then we end up talking about the weather and our families, and the relationship never gets deeper. So in my job as director of this organization, I encouraged American Unitarian Universalists with Transylvanian partner churches neither to ignore the marriage equality difference or to give up on partnership. I also encouraged them not to try to change the minds of their partners. Instead, I encouraged them to openly share their own views and experiences and understandings, and to try to listen to the Transylvanian perspectives. You see, I believe that only in mutual open dialogue can hearts and minds truly be changed. The social psychologist Jonathan Haidt writes that seeing another person's angle is essential to opening the possibility of changing their minds. So the summer after the Synod passed the statement, I was co-leader of a joint pilgrimage of Unitarian Universalist ministers from here, Unitarian ministers there, and I led this group with a minister there. Now, one of the leaders in the ministry that we worked with there, I knew had been a very outspoken proponent of that statement. And despite what I just said about encouraging American partners to engage in open dialogue about the issue, when one of my American colleagues did that, I sort of gulped in apprehension about what was about to happen. So she asked this guy, "So where do you stand on this issue?" Well, as I think back on it, I realized that the American colleague raised this issue exactly in the spirit of decenter and receive, the exercise that Amy opened with. And so she asked her question from a place of genuine curiosity with a desire to center the minister's experience as she listened to his story. The way she asked made space for him to tell his story and for her to receive it honestly and non-defensively. He accepted the invitation and shared. And then she shared her story and her experiences and her very different beliefs about marriage equality. Well, the conversation ended because we had to hop in cars and drive to visit a Unitarian church that was about an hour away. And I ended up in the car with that Transylvanian minister alone. And we carried on the conversation that was started so beautifully for the whole hour. The spirit of decenter and receive characterized both of our approaches. So I shared about my journey toward inclusion and my commitment to anti-oppression against LGBTQ people that includes in my own story some painful moments when I failed to affirm and support LGBT people in my family. I shared about the massive price that many LGBTQ people I know have paid for this exclusion and oppression. And in listening to his story, I learned more about what motivated so many Hungarian Unitarians in the Synod to vote for the statement. I learned that, in fact, many Unitarians in Transylvania do indeed believe that marriage should be limited to that lifetime commitment between a man and a woman, but probably less than 85%. And let me just say here, you know, that view that many Transylvanian Unitarians have is not very different from the view American UUs had not so many decades ago. I also learned that other Transylvanian Unitarians may actually not believe in that statement, but they saw the vote as about being aligned with the Hungarian government, which strongly opposes marriage equality and LGBTQ inclusion. Since Transylvania was stripped from Hungary in the aftermath of World War I because it sided with the Germans, it was a punishment, ethnic Hungarians in Transylvania have treasured their identity, and it's been persecuted. The Romanian endeavor in Transylvania over these past 100 years can be properly understood as colonization. And the colonization effort frequently manifested in attempts to erase Hungarian identity and culture. So the current government of Hungary, which I am not a fan of, has taken remarkable steps to support ethnic Hungarians in Transylvania, in Romania, including offering dual citizenship. Alignment with the Hungarian government feels to some as important in the face of this legacy of colonization. Others among the Unitarians in Transylvania were motivated by a strong desire to avoid anything that separates themselves from other ethnic Hungarians in Romania, most of whom are Catholic or Reformed. And both Catholic and Reformed traditions in Romania are firmly opposed to marriage equality. So the division among ethnic congregations, the prospect of that in the face of this legacy of persecution and colonization feels dangerous to some folks there. And still others, I learned, were motivated by the money. The Hungarian government is giving tens of millions of dollars to the Unitarian Church in Transylvania and other ethnic Hungarian institutions every year, way more than American partners have ever given. With good reason, some folks there believe that that money spigot could be turned off if they hadn't taken the stand about marriage equality. So there, we listened, we shared. Did either of us change our minds? Probably not. But we did at least open our hearts enough to take in the other's perspective and story. I learned this whole thing was a lot more complex than I thought. He heard a very different viewpoint and experience from me that I hope maybe he remembers to this day. When we interact with someone who holds very different views from us, how do we make space to hear their story? How do we make space to share and to learn? It feels to me like many American Unitarian Universalists have seen this as an either-or proposition. Either we pretend to be neutral and we don't really share our own story or what we believe, or we go in attack mode and diminish the chances of our being heard. Of course, mutual dialogue sometimes feels really impossible, even if we'd like to have it. Sometimes the other person is not open to hearing our experiences and beliefs, and it's even harder when the other person, rather than coming at it with a spirit of decentering and receive, is more in attack and destroy. So what do we do then? This may be a live question for some of you as you contemplate Thanksgiving and the holidays in December and returning to some extended family gatherings. And I don't have a magic answer about this. I think in some intra-family cases, it's probably good to say, let's just set that aside and not talk about it. But that's not a good thing in all situations. Our society that is inflicting harm, especially on marginalized people in an increased way, needs to have conversations and lean into why we believe what we believe and what do we believe, and share that with other people. We need to find ways to create fertile ground for changing minds and hearts, especially those of us who are allies of marginalized people and have so much less to lose in those conversations. But so many of us, and I sure include me in this, have built up walls around us that separate us, that seal us off from people who have different viewpoints. When we rarely have an opportunity to share, we either agree not to share, or one or both of us come at each other in attack mode. When I'm in these situations, especially if someone's coming at me in attack and destroy mode, I try to picture in my head Mahatma Gandhi. He held his beliefs so strongly that he was willing to die for them, that he was willing to be persecuted for them and imprisoned. He never held back on them. And at the same time, he acted and spoke as if he really did believe that the other people, even who were ready to attack him, had inherent dignity and worth. He treated all people as relations. The heart of his nonviolent doctrine was speaking his own truth and listening to others, even if they were coming in the form of attack and destroy. It was a both and, not an either or for Mahatma Gandhi. This is complicated stuff. I mean, I don't know if Gandhi's Universalist nonviolent doctrine would work always. I think about legalized slavery in the United States and how it took violence to end that, and that in the absence of the violence of the Civil War, it probably wouldn't have ended, at least for many, many decades. I struggle with this. I personally am committed to nonviolence, but I struggle with this. Maybe you do too. Well, our country nears the end of another contentious election cycle. Consequential issues are at stake, like the right to make decisions about our own bodies, like increased hatred and discrimination against marginalized people, like maybe the very vibrancy and survival of our democracy. It's pretty hard to navigate this. How I'm trying to do it is to hold my views and my values strongly and to act and speak on them, and at the same time to try to remember that I actually do believe that Unitarian Universalist principle that every person has inherent dignity and worth. I'm trying to stay open to the opportunities for engagement with people who hold opposite views. In my experience with Transylvanian Unitarians opposed to marriage equality is helping me understand how to do that work. I want to add this morning, and I hope I'm not jinxing anything, that if the election feels disappointing to some of us on Tuesday, that we not give in to despair. I found these words in the Washington Post in an op-ed piece a couple days ago from a writer who's Israeli and was profoundly disappointed by this most recent Israeli election. He wrote that despair is immoral. When you say change is impossible, you free yourself of the responsibility to work for it. So I'm going to try to remember that if I fall into despair this week. And I'm going to allow myself to despair for a little bit, but not to get stuck in it. This congregation and most UU congregations are laboratories where we try to grow despite and actually because of our different spiritual understandings. We can practice here mutual relationship with people who hold different viewpoints, different spiritual perspectives. And I think that's a really important thing in this world that is so divided. In fact, I think it's going to get more and more important. So this is part of why Dick Ottman's statement today, testimonial about the legacy that he and his wife are giving this church, something that helps ensure the future of this church resonates with me, because this church matters. It matters to the people who are here and the people who are going to come here in the coming years. And it matters to this northeast quadrant of the Twin Cities, and certainly it matters to Mahtomedi and White Bear Lake. And is it going to solve all the problems in these places? No, it's not. But it's going to be part of the solution. It has been part of the solution, like the North Star Drop-In Center, which is saving lives in this area. And so this church is part of what's going to save the world. We need it. In a moment, we're going to sing our closing hymn, which has lyrics by Alicia Carpenter, who died last year. She's a UU singer-songwriter. The UU minister and hymn expert, Reverend Kimberly Debus, likes this hymn because, as she writes, there's both an openness and an urgency in its message. And that pretty much ties together what I want to say today, that somehow, even as we need to feel continued urgency in working for a better, more just world, we also have to find ways to stay open. And that openness will actually help us do the urgent work. Openness and urgency. This is an embodiment of this month's worship and learning theme, which is change, the practice of both and. We need both urgency and openness. Let's join in this difficult, world-changing practice. And let's join by rising in body or spirit wherever we are to sing our closing hymn, number 300 in the large gray hymnal, with heart and mind.
Please join me in the closing words. May peace dwell within our hearts and understanding in our minds. May courage steel our will and the love of truth forever guide us.